All right. Good morning. My name is Julia DeGraw, but I'm actually reading testimony on behalf of Dan Meek, who was not able to make it today. He's an attorney involved with the Honest Elections, Multnomah County, and this is regarding the Honest Election Ordinance. On April 7th, 2017, we asked Multnomah County Commission to adopt a detailed implementing ordinance for Measure 26-184, which created Section 11.60 and Chapter 11 of the Multnomah County Home Rule Charter. Honest Elections provided a detailed proposed ordinance. The Commission instead adopted the ordinance, just restating the provisions that were already passed without the implementing details. Honest Election then proposed an improved revised ordinance on July 13th, 2018, which the Commission has not yet adopted. I want to say this before I go back to this document. It's 10 pages, and I asked for, so it's obviously not going to be 3 minutes of testimony. I'm going to do kind of like a best of here, but I recommend that you read all the examples. That he really makes a strong case. So going back to the document. So we have heard that the commissioner's reluctance to adopt it stems from objections raised by the county attorney, whose objections have been described to us as adopting a more specific tagline requirement would somehow adversely affect the case, which has now been accepted to the Oregon Supreme Court, and amending the existing ordinance would somehow subject the commissioners to potential liability. In our opinion, neither of these is accurate or is correct. So first of all, adopting a more specific tagline requirement would not adversely affect the case, which now has been accepted by the Supreme Court. And he has several examples of this, and we see no basis for that conclusion. And in fact, it actually would help strengthen that case. Let's see. We have found, finding here we are. We have found that we have sought an implementing ordinance that is the same as the tagline requirement that is now in the Portland City Charter, having been adopted by the voters of Portland in November 2018. So that's also something helpful, that it matches an existing charter that if you pass this updated ordinance. I'm going to jump ahead to Section A. It is ordinary legislative practice to amend laws found unconstitutional in order to re-enable their implementation. So after the court declared their concerns about the unconstitutional, after the court declares a law unconstitutional for a discrete reason, it is ordinary legislative practice to amend the statute to remove the infirmity. For example, lots of examples. And there are many other examples. So we ask the commissioners to engage in this ordinary legislative practice of correcting a deficiency identified by judicial decision. Multnomah County can then join the states that already require the political ads, identify their largest funders, including California, Hawaii, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, Colorado, Minnesota, Virginia, and many others. The last part, which I'm obviously running out of time for, and I won't read a bunch of it, is he makes a very strong case about liability here, gives many, many examples about how commissioners are allowed to take these actions and not be held liable for them. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Juan Carlos Ordóñez. I'm a resident of Multnomah County, and I also served on the Multnomah County Charter Review Commission that sent the Amendment 26-184 to the ballot. And I'm here to once again ask that this board spell out the piece of the ordinance, implementing ordinance, spelling out the tagline requirement. When the people of Multnomah County had made it very clear, they spoke loud and clear when they enacted by a 9 to 1 margin to enact Measure 26-184. They want big money out of politics, and that includes requiring political advertisements to show who's funding those ads. And if there was any question as to how wildly popular this provision is, the voters of Portland did so by a very similar margin. When we put together what became Amendment 26-184, we knew that spelling out the tagline requirement was going to be too complicated, and that's why we left it to this board to do that. And we put in the deadline that this should be done, an implementing ordinance should be passed by no later than September 1, 2017. Unfortunately, the tagline requirements were never spelled out by this board, even though many times we raised the issue. Julia pointed out some of the times. And we did that at public hearings like this one. We did it in individual conversations with board members. So you are all very well aware of the need to do this. Unfortunately, the board did not act, and the circuit court, in its ruling on the county measure on 26-184, among its rulings, it held that the provision was vague. Now that the Oregon Supreme Court will be reviewing this, there's a very real possibility that the court could uphold the constitutionality of the disclosure provision, yet still decide that it's vague. And if that were to happen, the blame will rest entirely on you, on this board, and its failure to act. Fortunately, we think that there's still time to act. You can still update the implementing ordinance, and spell out the tagline requirements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Aram Andriessian, here to urge you to support Measure 26-184 in its entirety. Almost 90%, as Juan said earlier, almost 90% of voters supported this measure 2.5 years ago, so it's important Multnomah County stand up for the will of its people, both in limiting contributions and requiring strong disclosures. I'm not here as a lawyer or a policy wonk. I'm an engineer more passionate about the environment than democracy reform. But I understand how, without fixing the how, the what will never change. A political process influenced by anonymous big donors makes it nearly impossible to save the planet. So here I am, talking about democracy reform. Whether it's climate change, civil rights, healthcare, or all of the above, most causes Multnomah County citizens care about are actively hamstrung by the effects of dark money in politics. We saw part of the solution in 26-184, and it's worth defending. I occasionally get comments about being younger than most people engaged on democracy reform issues. Looking around the room, I definitely have to agree. But there's a reason my generation has a reputation for being checked out of the political process. We've inherited a system where the price of participation is more than most of us can afford. Citizens United was decided before we ever got the chance to vote. We've grown up knowing that anonymous big donors rule American politics, and our participation rates have declined to match our expectations. 26-184 and measures like it could change how we view the process and get people my age engaged again. When I was telling my friends about 26-184 in 2016, a lot of them, some of them first-time voters, were excited, and that was the main issue that got them to the ballot that year. There are lots of people my age ready to engage on issues they care about. They just want to know they have a fair shot. Multnomah County has an opportunity to effect real positive change in the political process by defending 26-184 and passing this ordinance. I'm not going to get into the legal weeds, as I'm sure plenty of people here will, but when 88.57% of your constituents agree on something, defending its full intent is the only right thing for elected officials to do. To put that in perspective of the same election, Donald Trump, with his 17%, won more Multnomah County votes than the no position on 26-184. As representatives of Multnomah County voters, it's up to you to make sure our will is upheld in court. This is a chance for Multnomah County to bend the arc of history in the right direction and to better support the values of Multnomah County voters. So please be our representatives when it really matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today.
This is Jason Kafori with the Honest Elections Oregon effort. We have a dual strategy going. We have a legal court strategy and a legislative strategy moving statewide simultaneously. Wanted to update everyone here. It's been a few years since 26-184 passed. Now we know that the Oregon Supreme Court is going to hear this directly November 1st, I believe, and opening briefs are due in July. So we don't have time to wait any further on this. We now have a firm deadline. We are going to be gathering amicus briefs. That means friends of the court briefs that are going to support this from nonprofit groups all over the state and the city. We are also going to work with the city of Portland. Tracy Reeves, the city attorney, has told me she's going to, quote, vigorously defend the constitutionality of this. And we hope to get a city of Portland amicus brief in support of the constitutionality of 26-184. We took our proposed disclosures piece and put it right into the city charter. So, what we're asking you to implement or something similar to it is already going to be existing charter law for the city. So it seems a no-brainer that the county and the city should have a parallel structure with how we do disclosures. There's huge momentum around this. The Senate at the legislative cycle has a Campaign Finance Reform Committee. They're meeting weekly. Senator Jeff Golden, who's a real advocate, is there leading the effort. In the House, Dan Rayfield, Alyssa Kenny Geyer, many others are fighting for this. There's been a huge transition, as we've seen. The governor is now, front and center on campaign finance reform. The Oregonian endorsed our City of Portland measure and now is running a huge series, a 4-part series on the problems of money in politics. Lane County is now going to take what we did at the City of Portland and pass something similar for Lane County voters. So this movement is spreading statewide, and it started here in Multnomah County. As we identified Judge Block, we just put that one sentence in about what this disclosures piece meant, and Judge Block called it vague and overbroad. We have a pretty simple solution here. We've given you a proposed ordinance. We'd love to work with you on it, but we don't have time to wait any further. We need to get this done in the next 30 to 60 days because we have to give the opponents time to say, okay, now I've seen the new ordinance. Now I can respond to it in their opening briefs. We don't want to be in a position where we pass something too late and then the other side says, oh, well, this is too new. We can't, we don't have time to reply to this, and then the Supreme Court process gets delayed. So time is of the essence. I know we've heard concerns about from the county attorney about specific things. The reality is we're all on the same team. We all want to get this passed. So if there are concerns from the county attorney, let's all sit down and figure out what those are. But it seems a no-brainer. I don't want to be sitting here a year and a half from now and the Supreme Court comes back after all the hard work we've done and they say, oh, well, we never updated the ordinance and therefore it's still vague and we lose on something that Washington and California have and a lot of neighboring states have. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.